All right, y'all. So AEW and Jon Moxley have been sued for negligence. Now, I wasn't able to do this live on the live that I just did, but I finally got settled and I was like, I need to get this video out there. So they are sued for not only negligence, but civil assault and battery as well. And it is by one of the production crew members. This article is an exclusive on SI.com. Excuse me. I had the slight hiccups. Now, the reason why Moxley and AEW are being sued, it all stems from an AEW Dynamite that happened in 2023. A man by the name of Christopher Dispensa. He was a part of the broadcast service group that supplied production people for AEW. They have a contract with BSG. BSG is their production. They're the ones who handle the electrical. So whatever they have to do in terms of I don't know, sets, lighting, microphones, cameras, all that comes from BSG. Okay. And what happened was during this match with Kenny Omega, Jon Moxley was set to get a screwdriver to take out Kenny Omega, but unfortunately, he got a little bit too overzealous in the match and he ended up hitting or pushing the crew member on the ground, and this is what caused Dispensa some injuries. He says the injuries occurred on May 10th of 2023 in Dynamite in Detroit. Moxley was going up against Omega in a cage match, and this ended up spilling into the outside. Moxley went to grab a screwdriver, which was a part of the story, and this was a part of the script. Dispensa knew about him trying to grab the screwdriver, but he didn't know that he was going to be pushed. That was something that was outside of the script. According to the article, it says the lawsuit claims Moxley was only supposed to grab the screwdriver and Dispensa took an unplanned fall as a result of being shoved. Okay, so he was pushed or shoved, if however you want to display it, in this match, and he ends up claiming that he was injured severely. Um, they say that his legal team is alleging that this is an example of civil assault and battery, and claiming that in allegedly deviating from the script, Moxley either showed an intent to harm Dispensa or, at a minimum, a complete disregard for whether harm was a result. Now, you have to go on Twitter to see the actual push or shove. To my eyes and my untrained eyes only, I can only go by what I saw. It wasn't a hard enough shove to be able to say that he caused all these bodily injuries that I'm going to tell you he says he has. But it does fall under the guise of what the attorneys are saying in terms of, at minimum, he had a complete disregard for whether harm was a result of him shoving him in this particular match. I mean, to in all fairness, that's true. Anything could have happened to this man after this shove. Anything could have happened to him. They should have just hired a plant to be there. Instead of using, that BSG group, they should have hired a local wrestler that would have been able to take the bump easier rather than shoving someone who isn't really involved in this match. Now you're suffering a lawsuit and you didn't have to. But the lawsuit also alleges that Moxley has a history of disciplinary issues, and before this incident even happened, involving other people while under AEW's employ. And they also say that past disciplinary offenses by Moxley include a documented history of unpredictability as well as a lack of control. And they say that AEW were known, they all knew this, or they should have known that the defendant about the defendant at the time of the assault, which is alleging to the fact that they put this person in harm's way by having him have a moment with Jon Moxley, period. Now, according to AEW and some higher ups who cannot speak on record because this is an ongoing lawsuit, but they have spoken in some capacity to this particular publication, their response is that Jon Moxley is not in any disciplinary issues, and he hasn't had any. They said that he's a respected wrestler in the back. He's revered as a locker room leader in the back, and that they don't like the characterization of Jon Moxley in this lawsuit. It's getting really ugly, is what it's getting. Now, here's what the lawsuit looks like. If you want to take a look at it, you definitely can. They have the whole 9 pages on the takedown on SI.com. They also claim that Moxley and AEW are responsible for gross negligence. They say by going off script and violently shoving the plaintiff, who was only a crew member, to the ground, Moxley demonstrated a substantial lack of concern for whether a severe injury would result to a production crew member at the event. They also add that in taking no precautions or preventative measures to protect production staff, defendant AEW's actions likewise show a reckless disregard for the safety of production staff, which goes beyond simple inadvertence. So essentially, what they're saying is they had no care or regard for whether or not the person who would have to take this bump would get injured because he's not a trained wrestler or a trained professional. He has no business doing it, which is true. To be fair, those statements alone fit the criteria of the lawsuit. Totally understand. And to be fair, they have grounds. But this is where it goes off the rails a little bit for me. When they start talking about his injuries that he sustained. Okay. Now, according to Dispensa, it says that the legal representation tells the takedown that he claims AEW upper management was aware of the incident, but they never discussed it with him. And he alleges to have met with Tony Khan and AEW General Counsel Chris Peck about potential full-time employment opportunities in the months after the incident, but acknowledged there was never a prior conversation about the injuries he says he sustained. So here's where things get a little messy for me. Christopher Dispensa ended up working for AEW through BSG all the way up until last year of 2024, even though he claimed he sustained these really bad injuries. He also met with full-time employment opportunities, like he says, but none of that ever came to fruition even after the injuries, and they were not discussed in these conversations. Here's a still image of the actual push. It looks a lot harder than it actually was. There wasn't really a lot of force in that push, if I'm being honest, but a push is a push, you know. According to Dispensa, he says that he suffered some pretty substantial injuries from this incident. Hold on a second. I want to make sure I can pull it up. He is looking for compensation for injuries that he suffered due to the actions of the wrestler and the company. The filing said the amount exceeds $25,000. It claims he incurred damages, including but not limited to medical expenses, disability permanent, and serious disfigurement. This is all from a shove, by the way. Wage loss and lost earnings capacity, pain and suffering, exemplary damages for mental and emotional anxiety, humiliation or indignity, diminution into business representation, opportunities, and other economic and non-economic damages not yet known, and all other damages available under Michigan law. So basically, he just filed the lawsuit under everything he could get it under. This is not a laughing matter, but it's just so funny. I'm like, Jesus Christ, like, did you cover your everything? It sounds like you covered everything. Um, Now, according to Dispensa, the injuries he suffered are severe neck and shoulder injuries as a result of being shoved to the ground. And according to the lawsuit, it resulted in him requiring cervical fusion surgery, shoulder surgery, and treatment for other unspecified injuries. This is all from a shove. A shove. Now, I'm not discrediting the shove, but it's just very interesting that he got the type of injuries a wrestler would obtain from being in a ring, banging their back on a springboard and mat every night, and he just got it from being shoved to the ground. I don't know, man. Something stinks. I don't like it. I'm not discrediting the man because honestly, he could have sued without all the injury situation because Moxley put his hands on him and he wasn't supposed to. This is where the situation of AEW being a young company and not really covering their asses, they're crossing their T's and dotting their I's, is where the situation can be dire and you end up in situations like this where you're getting lawsuits. From now on, any new promotion, old promotion, whatever the case may be, if you are going to do a spot like what you did with Moxley in this particular match with Kenny Omega, then you need to make sure you cover your ass. The people on the outside, when you're grabbing a screwdriver from someone or you're taking something, put this shit inside of a fucking toolbox underneath the ring. You know what I'm saying? Give it to a wrestler. Have a wrestler be out there posing as production and crew and let him take the bump. They know what to do. They know exactly how to fall, where to turn. They have that all mapped out. But to do that with a non-wrestler, someone who is not trained or paid to do stunts and take bumps, you are putting yourself in dire danger, okay? You kind of low-key did this to yourself, AEW, because you didn't protect your ass. This is a lesson learned. Next time, hire somebody to do the stunt. It's simple as that. Y'all are more than likely going to end up paying this man probably a minimal amount. If I were Tony Khan, I would settle out of court and just pay him a small amount to get him to be quiet. Because at this point, Moxley did shove the man. You can see it. It's visible on camera. It was a part of the show. So it's not like it didn't do it. The whole point is that Dispensa and his legal team has to prove that this particular shove incurred these damages and emotional distress. Now, I will say that according to this article, Dispensa ended up being fired sometime after the show. It was way after his last show on AEW. He ended up getting demoted to being like a carpenter for BSG, and then that was it. So I apologize, I misspoke. He didn't get fired, but he did say he got demoted. So that can lead to some emotional distress. He believes that is somewhat linked to his injury through AEW. So there's a lot going on here, and listen, I don't know what to tell you other than Moxley, AEW, settle this shit out of court, get this man some money so he can go on about his business and y'all can move on. And next time, hire a stunt man or a wrestler to do the fucking stunt.
Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe for more wrestling content. Check out our merch and consider becoming a member for exclusive perks, special emojis, and members-only content.